Okay, everybody, this is part 3. And we discussed at the end of part 2 about the glycemic index and how a high glycemic index, or the high intake of sucrose and other sugars like high fructose corn syrup, helps to cause diabetes or pre-diabetic conditions. All of these issues are very bad for your organs and for your livelihood. So it's important to prevent a high glycemic index. Regular sucrose consists of glucose and fructose. It's divided in the saliva of your mouth by amylase, which is an enzyme. And there it is swallowed and absorbed in the bloodstream. The glucose is used for your brain, and the fructose goes for burning in your muscle and such. But it can lead eventually, if you get too much fructose, especially with high fructose corn syrup, to fatty acid disease, or fatty liver disease, excuse me. So all of these physiological issues are related to the bad sugars, or what I would call the natural sugar, but a sugar that has a whole lot of calories and has been abused by our industry, because we sweeten everything. We celebrate sugar through alcohol, through all forms of candy, and then almost everything we eat is artificially sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. So it's extremely important that you understand what I'm about to tell you, because it can save your life. In fact, the molecule that I've been discussing in the last 2 sessions can save your life in 3 different directions. Not only by preventing diabetes, but as I touched in the second class or lesson, it controls opportunistic bacterium like strep. And strep gets in your bloodstream along with P. gingivalis. And the P. gingivalis and these other bacterium can cause heart disease. It can even affect a fetus to where it initiates preterm birth. So that's the second way that a bad sugar can affect you. A bad sugar can also cause periodontal disease, and they think now that pancreatitis and gingivitis and periodontitis and all of these chronic diseases or chronic problems may be related to it. So the molecule I'm talking about is xylitol. And I know many of you have heard crazy things about xylitol. But xylitol, as stated in the first lesson, is natural to the human body. It's just that we're not used to consuming it in its pure form. We consume it in strawberries, plums, in raspberries, in cauliflower, and mushrooms. So when you add it to, let's say, your coffee, and you consume too much too quickly, it is hypertonic. Hypertonic means that it initiates fluid flow. So you're digesting it, you're getting into your system, it's going into your intestine. It's going to initiate the production of fluids, and therefore it will smooth out your bowel movement, preventing constipation, which is important. That's why this sugar is so good for traveling, because when you're having natural constipation as you travel, the sugar, if it's in a gum, for instance, you're chewing it, it's helping to prevent tooth decay, stimulating saliva, then it goes into the intestine and it stimulates fluid flow. So it's really good for you. But some people have been fooled or misled into thinking that xylitol causes diarrhea. Now, some of these sugar companies did mix xylitol with erythritol. Erythritol is also an alcohol sugar, but it's a 4-carbon sugar, and it is totally absorbed by the sugar, and it initiates issues that can really cause GI problems. So if you see erythritol in anything, shy away from it. Xylitol is good, erythritol is bad. And you know what? They make lollipops for kids using erythritol. And so then they see the word xylitol on there and they think it's what's causing it. No, it's the erythritol that's causing it. So be careful with erythritol. But the xylitol is working, as I was stating earlier, in many different ways. It's working to initiate fluid flow, to control bad bacteria, to carry calcium to bone and to teeth. That was in lesson 1. It works to decrease your glycemic index. That was in lesson 2. And we're going to find out later in the next lesson another way that it works in a powerful, powerful way. But we're going to, right now, we're going to delve into this hypertonic aspect of it, because it's very interesting and you need to understand it deeply so that you can remember why it's doing what it's doing. Xylitol was created in order for plants to get minerals into the area that it needs the minerals the most. For instance, in corn, it's in the corn kernel. So xylitol is in the corn cob. It acts as a pump. It draws the water from the ground. All those minerals go up the stem, the stalk and the stem, and goes into the corn kernel. Likewise, photosynthesis is converting sun into sugar. That sugar is moving from the leaves because of this pump system also to the corn cob and into the kernel. That's why the corn cob is full of xylitol. And by the way, that's why the Chinese are buying up all our corn cobs. You know, the pigs, they eat the corn cob. We eat the corn kernel. They're getting the good stuff. We're getting the bad stuff. We make high fructose corn syrup from the corn kernel. So that's an important lesson to learn right there, because we made a real bad decision in 1972, in that period of time, when we chose high fructose corn syrup and bought the patent from Japan to mass produce it. And so we put it in everything. And we got all our kids hooked on sweets and everything we drink, sports drinks, you know, all the, including nutritious foods like yogurt, it's in there. And we put it in all the canned foods, including green beans, etc., to sweeten them up. So Europe adopted xylitol. And the reason why Europe adopted xylitol is because in World War II, Finland was unable to get sugar. So they decided to extract the sugar they knew was in birch trees, and that just happened to be xylitol. And they made mints for their kids, and they started feeding their kids in 1935. 2 mints or 3 mints a day, one after each meal. And being a socialistic system, they made sure every kid got it. So that was one of the best studies ever conducted in the world. You had a closed system. All the kids were taking the xylitol mints. So 20 years later, when they studied all those grown adults, they found that they had very low tooth decay, very low instances of middle ear infections, and low instances of sinus infections. Unbelievable. And later, in later studies, they discovered that the women had low preterm birth rates. Unbelievable. And that was all related to those mints they took after each meal. The perfect time to take it is after a meal, because it stimulates salivary flow and helps inhibit the bad bacteria. So it's decreasing the acidity around the teeth. preventing tooth decay in two different directions by lowering the acidity and controlling the bad bacteria. So this science is what we call bottom-up science, because they were working with the population, working up not for profit, but to benefit society. That's what's going on in a lot of places like in Asia and other countries that work in hospitals to find out what's wrong with the patient, and they realize, hey, this seems to be working, like what happened in the cystic fibrosis hospital in Chicago. They saw that one of their cases was improving, and they asked the mother, what are you doing? And she said, I'm giving my son xylitol. Xylitol was helping to break down that salt, that really salty phlegm that was forming in the lungs, those salt excretions. Because it's hypertonic, it stimulates fluid flow. That's why it decreases sinus infections. It gets in there and it stops the bad bacteria, plus it generates fluid flow so it's all flushed out. It's like the perfect combination 1-2 punch. It is deactivating the bacteria. The bacteria detaches from the tissue. The bacteria cannot reproduce. The bacteria is floating around, and that fluid is being excreted from every single cell. And so then it flows down the throat and out into the alimentary tract, where it's neutralized by the acids in the stomach. That is the perfect medicine, folks. Instead of taking all these synthetic nasal sprays that burn when you squirt it, this has no burning effect. So the point is that mixed with water, it can really help knock out all that bad bacteria in your sinuses. And for these people with all these sinus problems, it's a big help, even with Omicron. So let's go back and just review a little bit here. In the mouth, it's working in many ways. In the sinuses, it's working many ways. In the bloodstream, it's working many ways. So in the bloodstream, remember, it's going to every organ. It's helping, I believe, that a lot of the pancreatitis is caused by the bacterium in the mouth. There are a lot of studies on that. And pancreatic cancer. So it may help prevent those, because it's controlling the bad bacteria that gets into the bloodstream and the mouth. They know that 5 of the major causes of death in America is related to xylitol. Did you hear that? Write that down. 5 of the major causes of death, it's not related to xylitol, I'm sorry, it's related to periodontal disease. Not to xylitol, but to periodontal disease, which is in the mouth. Xylitol helps to control the bacterium related to that periodontal disease. So in other words, you're taking the xylitol, and they found this out in Finland too, that it will control the bad bacteria. That bad bacteria otherwise gets into the bloodstream. Also, because the xylitol gets in the bloodstream, it works in the bloodstream too to help prevent these bad bacteria from getting into the placenta, the amniotic fluid, the umbilical cord, and that's why xylitol helps to prevent preterm birth. But it also works to help prevent the bacteria from getting to the heart. Those are big studies. Now, the studies have shown that most heart disease, or a lot of the heart disease, is related to the bad bacterium coming out of the mouth. Likewise, like I said, they believe that diabetes and pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer also is related to that bad bacteria. Not only that, so that's 1 and 2. The third big cause of death related to the mouth is oral cancer. Oral cancer, a lot of it's related to viruses, HPV virus, but it's also related to irritation. Xylitol does help decrease the irritation in the mouth because it's increasing salivary flow. And the fourth one, that is a big factor in causing death and is related to the mouth, most of us don't really think about it, is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea kills 37,000 people a year. And inflammation of that tissue in the back of the mouth is one of the causes of sleep apnea. I was having a real big problem sleeping the other day, and I got my squirt out of xylitol, and I did the nasal squirt and a different bottle for the spray in the mouth, and that really helped me to sleep because it was liquefying that phlegm, and it was helping decrease the inflammation. So there you have 4 of them. You have heart disease, you have diabetes, you have oral cancer, and you have sleep apnea. And guess what the 5th one is? What happens to people when they get older? One of the biggest forms of cancer is colon cancer. And remember I said that xylitol increases fluid flow. So not only does it do it that way, because Harvard studies show that constipation is related to the cancer in the colon, but also you have the bad bacteria that's being neutralized, or the microbiome is maintained in a good way. That helps to prevent colon cancer. But there's a 3rd one, and that is that your colon has a lining. The xylitol is converted into a very slick chemical that lines the colon and allows the fecal material to flow through without a problem. And that phlegm, or that thick mucus material, is established by the xylitol. We're going to go more into that next time, because colon cancer is very important. And I want to make sure that we go through colon cancer, because it affects everybody in my age group and as we get older. So I'm going to get you into the colon cancer aspect of what xylitol can do for you next time. Thank you.